Welcome to Business Beyond Borders, the go-to podcast for CPA firms seeking transformative insights. I'm your host, Lawrence Whittam, and with each episode we'll uncover key insights, best practices, and invaluable resources tailored for CPAs. From trending strategies to diving deep into outsourcing and offshoring, our experts will help in all areas of your business. Hey everyone, and welcome to the podcast. So we're here today with a special guest, John Fenton, who is also known as the CEO Sensei. So I'll let you explain that bit as well, John, in a second. But I like to kick things off with you personally giving your own introduction rather than me butchering it. Right. So I don't want to tell your piece. So can you give everyone just a quick intro as to who you are and explain the CEO Sensei side of things?
Thank you so much, Lawrence. This is a fantastic opportunity to spend some time with you today. What do? I'm a retired managing partner. I work with CPAs and professionals, professional service firms, helping them be the best leaders they can be through one-to-one coaching, group coaching, as well as strategic working sessions on strategy, vision, purpose, culture, and really helping them be the best leaders they can be, and so they can have more success and more freedom in their lives. Really taking them from where they are to where they want to be. CEO Sensei, a little bit of background of that. Sensei means teacher, and I think a large part of my role is a teacher in some respects, but I have some great experiences, though, throughout my life. I played college football, very high level, nationally ranked team and successful program there, and was on successful sports teams and also on some really lousy teams. So I really experienced the leadership and teamwork at various, many levels there, many experiences there. And same in the business world. I was a managing partner, worked for the same firm, BDO USA, for over 30 years, and really saw the good, the bad, and the ugly of leadership. So I've always been a student of leadership and what made teams better than other teams. And I even study pro teams and college teams to kind of understand what makes them tick and how are they so successful when others aren't. And along the way, I discovered Tai Chi, and which really helped me be a better leader, helped me be more mindful, more present. I'm very much future focused in my work and in my mindset. And so many times I find myself into the future, and a lot of people, it causes more stress and anxiety in their lives, right? So Tai Chi really helped me to make that mind-body connection, to learn meditation. And I just fell in love with Tai Chi. The rigor of it and the discipline of it really made a lot of sense to me. And I think that's because of my athletic background too, just all the work that I did. I was very much someone who spent a lot of time preparing for the next game, thinking about the game plan, thinking about, preparing my body, making sure my body was healthy. And I had my ups and downs and injuries throughout my career, as most football players go through, and finding ways to make sure I was ready to play. And a lot of that's mindset, right? So the CEO Sensei really came out of, I was thinking about CEO Whisperer when I was thinking about this, and someone else famous has used that term. I said, well, what about CEO Sensei? And that seems to stick. And it's really about teaching, but it's kind of ties in with my martial arts background. But, I achieved master status, a black belt status. But, being a master, being a black belt, being a master, let's say, you haven't really mastered anything. You've mastered yourself, really, more than anything, right? But there's always room to grow. There's always continuous learning and continuous improvement, which I'm a huge believer in. Look at any sports team, any successful leaders and successful teams are always continually looking to improve, whether it's Six Sigma or some other methodology to do that in their business, also self-improvement. And so I'm a big believer in that as a leader, it starts with you. And so really a master just means I've gone a little bit further ahead than the student. I've just had a little bit more experience than the student, and I can share some things with them to help them be the best leaders they can be. So I'm the CEO Sensei.
Perfect. No, I appreciate that. And it's, again, it's unique and it fits your background very well. And although again, when it comes to the football side of things, I've got to say it's on this podcast, at least the football is not soccer here. That's football for me. And so we've got to call it American football just to make sure.
There you go. That's right. Be clear, right?
But yeah, no, I mean, the athlete side of it, again, very relatable, and coaching as well that I did for a long time. So it's and again, the best part about sort of the idea of this podcast is not just about the outsourcing and the offshoring and that those aspects that I do, but again, it's bringing resources to firms and businesses that they can utilize, because leadership in that firm and in the business is so important just in order to scale. And again, coming from BDO, obviously, especially now, like in the most recent years, I mean, they've had major changes, right? So they are definitely one of the front runners, right? They've been growing drastically, exploring the offshoring, outsourcing side of things. They've done an ESOP recently, right? So always changing the game compared to a lot of other firms. So it's cool to have you on. So, and I'm sure everyone will find it very helpful. So, and let's just start off sort of like by talking about, I guess, the implementation side of things, like with firms, and when it comes to a leader doing that, because they have to really push the boundaries a little bit and motivate people to really implement the change when again, we've all agreed on, yes, we want to do something, but we need the implementers in the firm. So what are the primary challenges CPA firms, businesses are facing, especially with like the advisory focused approach that we're now pushing towards, to actually implement, right?
Great question. Yeah, implementation is really where the rubber meets the road. As Tom Peters said, excellence is the next 5 minutes, and what you do in the next 5 minutes really matters. I even wrote a book about 5-minute mastery. It was a bestseller a few years ago. But change, the accounting profession in particular, and business in general, we're facing a lot of change, accelerated change, and it continues to grow, I think, and it feels that way. And I know we've all experienced that. And so how do we implement things that are going to be useful to our firm going forward to be that advisor? Let's face it, you are a trusted advisor. I like to think of myself as a trusted advisor to trusted advisors, right? It's your clients are going to expect more from your firm as time goes on. They're willing to pay for, if you bring a solution to a problem they have, they're willing to pay you for that, right? It takes time, It takes effort, and it takes intentionality around focusing on having a consultative mindset. The rub is really that we all came through the accounting programs at college and training and everything, and most of us coming from the accounting, tax, audit side, came through with a compliance mindset. Everything's geared towards passing the CPA exam. That's very much compliance oriented, knowing the rules, understanding the rules, and then testing those rules against what the clients are doing. But we have to think outside that box. And so, first of all, I think I know from my own experience, it starts with the leaders. What kind of firm do you want to have? Right? Do you want to be a consultative firm, or do you want to continue to be a compliance-based firm? And that's a business decision, right? You don't have to do that. I don't think your firm trajectory is not going to be what you want, I don't think. And you're not going to be as successful as you'd like to be. And maybe over time, you may become irrelevant when you look at technology changes and things that are happening. So you brought up offshoring and those kinds of things. So I think what has to happen is, my experience, to implement, you have to take on a role of understanding change and embracing change. And how do we deal with that? So a lot of firms, what they're doing, they're creating a team of people inside the firm to focus on change, implementing change, thinking outside the box. Some firms have even implemented sort of a Shark Tank approach to creating new solutions. And a lot of it is also, okay, so we're going to create these solutions, but how do we implement them? How do we get them out to our clients? Well, you have to find the people, you have to know your talent in your firm. You have to know the people in your firm pretty well. I don't mean everybody. If you have 100 people, it's going to be hard for you as a managing partner or leader to know everybody in your firm. But know your direct reports, know them intimately. So spend some time with them, get to know them, learn their strengths and their weaknesses. Find the people that have the innate skill set to help be more consultative. Or you may have to hire in for that too, right? So implementing, you have to find a leader, someone that can champion those types of projects if they're unique to your firm. Some firms, some of the managing partners I've talked to, some of those firms have been very consultative throughout their careers.
Yeah.
The big rub is that when young people are coming out of college, they want to be consulting right away. And obviously there's a learning curve, a learning period. And so how do we create an environment, a culture where everybody feels like they're learning and growing? I think that's really important. McKinsey had a report several months ago, I think it came out in December or October, performance versus how high performing teams can be successful, performance and people and performance focus of the company, of an entity, and really allowing your firm or creating an environment where your firm or your company is a talent magnet. How do we do that? We've got to find the right people, get the right people in the right seats. Jim Collins' work on Good to Great is still relevant today as it was 30-something years ago when the book came out. Find the right people in the right seats. Hire people with the right consultative mindset. So it's not so much hiring based on a resume. You got to look at their character. You got to really interview them, with the right kind of questions and interview process to find those right people. But inside your firm, there are people that can do it and will embrace it and want to do it. Who want to be more consultative if you're not already doing it as a culture in your firm. So identify those people, create a team that's focused on that, and then brainstorm. A lot of times, all the work that I do is strategic. I call it strategic work sessions. It's actually a brainstorming session to kind of focus on, okay, where are we at and where we want to go with this project? How do we get there? And then build out an action plan to help get there. Building an action plan, being very intentional, being very specific, using SMART goals, right? We all learned the acronym about SMART goals: specific, measurable, et cetera. Holding yourselves accountable. Accountability is a big part of that too. And I know a lot of firms are struggling with, we've had more of a collegial atmosphere in many firms, particularly the mid-sized firms that I work with. Collegial atmosphere, a partnership, it's a profession. We need to think about our business as a business.
Yeah.
And then get the right people in the right place, be intentional about where we want to take the firm. So a lot of my work is around strategic visioning and planning. I have a whole process I walk firms through in terms of identifying what are our strengths and weaknesses, internal, external, where do we want to position ourselves in the market, really getting connected to our why. Why do we do business? Why do we exist? It's the Simon Sinek notion of why. It's really get down to the emotional level about why we are doing what we're doing as a firm and what we believe in. And you'll attract the people, if you believe in client advisory and providing great value for your clients and making more money, right? Providing higher value services to your clients. That's a whole shift in mindset. That's a transformation in your business. We still got to do the compliance work, right? We still have to do that. And there's still bread and butter there, right? We're not going to just discard that totally. But over time, as we see, technology continues to advance, offshoring opportunities, lowering our cost on the compliance things, blocking and tackling, I like to call it, should free us up to enable us to spend more time consulting with our clients.
Yeah. Now, when we come to obviously this huge change, obviously, so there's lots of aspects there that you sort of covered in there. Now, when it comes to, let's say, like the leader in the firm, so whether it's the managing partner, whether it's a CEO in a business, and we're talking about these drastic changes that we have to make, and you've got to get people on board. And like you were saying, like the why is one thing, right? To attract the talent, to make sure everyone's on board. How may differ from person to person, right? How they personally have to do it or whatever the case is. But what are some of the sort of core functions that they can focus on themselves as leaders in order to do that transition appropriately? Like, is there like one or two things that you say, like, if you do this, you'll automatically go up a step in terms of your leadership characteristics and how you do it?
Mm-hmm. Well, you keep saying I believe, and I know from my own experience that it really starts with the leader, and it's really about looking internally first. I'm a big believer in, based on my martial arts experience, start with ourselves first, right? So believe in yourself, believe in following your intuition. So believe in what is it you want to accomplish. So you have to be very clear about your vision for the firm, for the company. And from an action standpoint, your culture is defined by your actions, right? So you want to have a culture that encourages, embraces change, that looks at more consultative mindset, which means you got to cross-sell. So as a leader, what you want to do is lead the charge in terms of communicating with everyone about, first of all, making it important, making change, making the consultative approach important. And people will focus on what the leader's focused on. So it's communication with your direct reports, your line leaders, your practice leaders, whatever they might be, however they roll up in your admin team. You want to collaborate with them, be clear about the vision of the firm. And the action steps you want to do is be consistent. Frequency and repetition are so important. So it's reminding people. So in all communication, all meetings, you want to include some aspect of change or consultative work so that it stays top of mind. People have to be reminded.
Yeah.
So that's one step. The other step is finding the right people. You can't do it all yourself. I think there's a big fallacy that CEOs and managing partners have is, I got to be involved in everything. I was just talking to a partner yesterday at a firm, mid-sized firm, and CEOs just trying to handle everything themselves. It's not possible. So find the right people. Be willing. Also be vulnerable enough to hire the right people or rely on the right people in your firm to help carry the water, if you will, to make these things real, to make them important, and to carry them out. So it's finding the right people, I think, on your team, a champion or two champions, build a consensus team around them, a team that can help them implement, and be very specific about what the outcomes are. Be clear about what kind of outcomes do you want to see and what they want to see. But then it's just checking in and making sure you're providing that, you're that resource to them when they have questions. So you're available, right? You're emotionally, it's important to you, it's important to them, but you just can't assume everybody's going to take care of it and walk away from it. Focus on whatever you like to do. I mean, a lot of partners like to focus on one aspect of the business, and that's it. Whether they're great tax compliance or they really love the research, accounting literature, whatever it might be, or be out in the community and meeting people. That's great too, and that's an important aspect. But you can't just dump it off on somebody else and think it's going to happen. You have to be really engaged yourself as a leader to make sure we're taking the right steps. The other thing I think is really important is training. You've got to have some training in your firm. And, it could, I'm not talking about the technical training. We all have to get our CPE in and that kind of thing. That's required, right? But really to foster change and growth, you need to be giving your people the right kind of training. And for me, a lot of it is, we used to call it soft skills. It's really power skills now, I think is a better term. Tom Peters, in Search of Excellence, wrote, what used to be soft is now hard, and what used to be hard is now soft. Just think of soft skills, people skills, relationships, and culture. He calls them hard because they are foundational. They're a bedrock to future success of your firm. If you don't realize it now, or haven't realized it by this point, you're in a relationship business. A relationship with your employees, your relationship with your customers, your vendors. So it's building strong relationships, being focused on people. But you can't just focus on people. You need to focus on people and performance. You have to have metrics in place, accountability. Yep. The big issue around accountability and getting things done. So hold yourself accountable as a leader, hold other people able, give them the opportunity. By doing that, they then hold themselves accountable, right? And then they can hold other people able. It shifts the mindset. Instead of holding someone else accountable, well, if you don't get it done, then you failed, right? As a leader, you got to take, what I recommend is, when you make a mistake, own it. If you have a loss or a failure, accept it and take ownership of that. And when you have successes, share it with everybody. Or have whoever led that charge, let them get all the accolades. You don't need to get all the accolades. If you look at successful college coaches or NFL coaches, again, I'm focused on American football.
Yeah.
And, they'll say, it's my responsibility. I made the wrong call, or I did this. They'll take full responsibility. If you listen to their press conferences after a game, if they lose. Same token, if they win, they're always talking about the players, the other coaches, other people that made this happen. You as the leader, everybody knows you're the leader. Your attribution, if you're successful, they're going to know that. So it's finding a way to share those success with people. Also, and don't be afraid to have some failures. Right? Not everything's going to work for you and your firm. So it's okay to fail, but kind of fail fast and fail cheaply. I think it was Hewlett Packard. I think it was Hewlett or Packard. I forget which one said that years ago. You want to try new things, be innovative, adapt and shift and change. It's okay to fail from time to time. Just limit your losses.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I enjoyed about the conversation before now as well, around the soft skills and the hard skills switch, right? But also, again, just the principle of actually taking credit yourself. Like, you can do that internally as a leader, right? But for everybody else, you've got to push that praise down, right? So really, like, even if you take accountability for, okay, something went wrong, that's fine. Maybe we addressed it in the wrong way. We've got to do this. You got to teach then and train the individual or the team to make sure they don't make the same mistake again. But you take a lot of that pressure off of, because they're going to get in their own heads, right, around that failure. Release that, but then vice versa, like, you can get in your own head about we've done a great job and stuff like this, but like, push that down as well. Like, no, this was you guys doing this, right? Because you're then going to motivate people in comparison, right? I mean, a good coach, a good leader is not taking that and saying like, yeah, no, this person clearly was the one on the team that messed it up. Because again, now the next is going to impact the rest of the game, right, at the end of the day as well.
Well, it's I tried to implement this, and it was not easy to implement this. I had read about it years ago, but the U.S. military, in particular the Navy SEALs, and I read this more recently in Daniel Coyle's book, The Culture Code, the Navy SEALs, Special Forces. After every engagement, now these are life or death situations, right? After every engagement, they have an after action review. They basically they're in a circle, basically, or in a room together, and they review what didn't work and what did work, what didn't work. In every action they take, not everything goes according to plan. Most plans are messed up before they even start. So things are going to happen that you don't plan for, right? And how do you adapt to that? How do you shift and all that? And so what they do is they review that, and there's no rank involved. So it can get heated sometimes, right? If someone says, well, so-and-so didn't do this, or I didn't do that, or whatever. But just taking ownership of your part, how you contributed to that situation, I think is important. And yeah, sharing the appreciation. I call it the power of appreciation. There's different ways to do that, but it has to be authentic and real. And it's not just a drive-by, hey, great job. It's really acknowledging people in your firm are doing great work that through their actions and with their performance really show others what it means to be a part of this firm. Yeah. When you acknowledge that in a meaningful way, what you're really doing is you're setting the bar high in terms of your culture, because your culture is defined by actions, not by words. What you do day in and day out. The inverse of that is whatever you allow to slip. If somebody doesn't perform or doesn't really act in a way that's consistent with your culture, you let that slip. It's like dealing with your children. If you give them rules and expectations for them and they don't do them and you let that slide, they're going to keep doing it. They're going to keep, right? They're just going to get away with it. Or they'll see the leaders not doing, walking the talk, right?
Yep.
Or the parents, right? They'll see the parents doing something. And so they'll say, oh, it's okay to do that. Well, you end up setting the bar low on your culture in terms of what you'll tolerate. So you have to be consistent. I mean, I love Nick Saban in Alabama, very consistent about what the culture is and what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. The great coaches are consistent. They're disciplined. They instill discipline. And it's all about the team, not the individuals. But they're consistent. And that's the key, is being consistent. And then recognizing the great performance that really emulates what it is you want your firm to be known for.
And you touched on it a little bit there, and then also previously, like earlier in the interview. But and it just comes to probably one of the biggest changes in the industry as well. And it surrounds talent, right? I mean, it surrounds how are we changing our cultures in our firms now to really attract not just professionals to come to our firm rather than somebody else's, but also to attract younger generations to want to get into it and educate themselves in accounting and go for that degree. And I see firms literally going to the grassroots, like going to high schools now and presenting there, showcasing like other aspects of the industry that can be done and things like that. So they're the ones that are sort of acting on it, which is great. And I think it's not talked about enough, those things, compared to there's a big staffing shortage, right? And everyone harps on that. Yeah. But again, that's news. We got to harp on the negatives, but everyone's interested by that. But there are a lot of firms doing things and strategically doing it as well. And they're the ones that are going to win, especially in their local societies and like areas and geographies and things. So, but when we talk about that, like how can a leader really encourage good belonging and sort of engagement with their teams? And we've touched on a few aspects, but like, what are some core areas there that they can focus on? Like, we need to do this in order to make sure that our team feels engaged in the company. They know our why and they're on board with our why. Like, how do they do that? And it's a very easy question. So
yeah, I was going to say there's many layers to that question. I just think about this in a kind of a logical format, the way I think about this in terms of understand your vision for the company, for the firm, understand your why. And it should be a collaborative process, not just something you came up with in your head. I was talking to a partner yesterday, and she's a practice leader, but not the CEO of the firm. And they don't really collaborate, right, in terms of the vision or where they're going and what the strategic vision is. That is not a good idea. So you want to collaborate. So having a clear idea about the why, that drives everything. In my view, that drives everything. Because if you're clear about that, it affects your marketing, it affects how you talk about your firm internally, externally, and treating your customers and your internal staff and future staff the same way in terms of what makes us great, why come to work here, what do we stand for, what do we believe in. So you got to be clear about that. And I think, again, it's frequency and communication about why it's important. So understanding that why. The second part of your question was?
I guess around the engagement side of it, right?
Right. Engagement is so important. That's right. Oh, I forgot about that. Engagement is so important. So, it's really great. I was leading a workshop, a strategic work session, and we had a mixture of next gen leaders. And one of the next gen leaders stood up and said, "Well, how do we get our people to engage more?" I thought about that for a moment. I said, "Well, how do you feel? When do you feel like you're more engaged?" I know from my own experience, I was a young pup in the firm. I had just joined the firm. It was like November. It was in between the busy season and quarters and that. And I was the new kid in the block. I was an experienced staff person, not quite a senior yet, not a senior. And managing partner, I was in the office. The managing partner came to me, "Hey, I got this projection. It's it was in Texas, this cattle ranch. And I want you to look at this projection and tell me if you have any questions or anything doesn't look right." I had no idea the operations of a cattle ranch, right? Spent some time with it, went through it, kind of thought about it, came back to him with a couple of questions. And I could tell from my questions to him, he kind of a little bit light bulb went off. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. That meant a lot to me just because he took the time to come, engage with me and let me kind of show what I could do or didn't do. And I think, so you want to give people more. This could be as simple as that. It could be like a really meaningful project in your firm.
Yeah. Give
people a chance to fail. And before you do that, you want to invest time in training. And I'm talking about not just, you should have some formalized training around, I'm a big believer in leadership. So obviously you have your technical training that's customized to your firm around your culture, why you do what you do, relationships, communication skills, those kinds of things. So you're giving people training along the way, in addition to the technical training, but also on the job training, hands-on training. That really comes from your seniors and your managers. Those are the people have most interaction with your staff people.
Yeah.
Right. And so you want to make sure your managers are really well trained. Look at any Gallup reports, they'll tell you people are disengaged because they have a crappy manager. I experienced that. I actually left public accounting early in my career. I left public accounting for about 6 months. I went to work for a Fortune 1000 company, and I thought I was being hired in to be the kind of the leader, director of this small accounting division within this large company. When I came in, they had promoted someone else right before I got there to that role. And this person was incompetent. It was not just my opinion. It was everybody working for this person. They're incompetent. They don't know what they're doing. It was very frustrating. And we tried to fix it, and nothing really happened. We couldn't really change it, the situation, right? Well, man, I'm the type of person that I do my job. I'm very intentional about doing a great job. But I was also looking for another job, and I ended up going back to my firm, basically.
Yeah.
I tried it, didn't like it. Everybody said, "Why are you going back to public accounting?" Well, I knew my career path, and I loved the work, and I loved the variety. And so I went back to public accounting and then took on some challenging. I was asked, hey, we got this really big client that was obviously new to the firm again in a different office in South Florida. And we got this big client. They're going to do an offering. Would you be interested? It was not in town. It was like 60 miles away. Would you be interested in working on that? I said, sure. So I took on that challenge, right? But I was asked. That really changed the trajectory of my, enhanced the trajectory of my career with the firm. So it's, sometimes you're asked, sometimes sometimes you need to ask your people and call on them to challenge them. Your young people want to do more challenging work. They want to be more engaged.
Yeah.
If we don't treat them that way, they're going to get dissatisfied and they're going to find they're going to go for the highest dollar. I will say this, your compensation has to be market. You got to be at market. You can't be below market. That takes the money issue off the table. Now, market keeps changing all the time, right? And some of us are scratch our heads going, oh my God, we're paying these 2-year people this. But we got to do that and stay in the game, but find the right people. If you find the right person who fits your culture, who's engaging, who will grow in that position and take on those challenges, they're going to pay for themselves pretty darn quickly.
Yeah. And I think one of the important pieces there as well, especially with this industry, is I would say to a good extent, right? The majority of people are more introverted than extroverted, right? In the majority case, but I would say again, you've got plenty of people that are not, right? But it also comes to the principle of those leaders. Again, you have to be the ones that are reaching out, right? I think is my point there, in terms of a lot of people are going to sit and do their work and they're going to want those challenging opportunities, but they're not necessarily they're not the ones that are going to speak up because they'll feel like they're speaking out of line. Oh, they don't want to also look negative around that. So a lot of people won't necessarily engage with their managers, their senior managers, their even partner, and they feel intimidated talking to the partners in some cases, right, as well, right, depending upon the culture. So that's sort of an aspect that I completely agree with. And I think that culture in terms of firms has changed drastically since I got into it 10 years ago to now. And I think obviously COVID shook everything up as well, just in terms of that. And also, again, spinning it towards that international team and international culture, and not just like culturally around my geography, my town, my city, my state. Now I've got employees cross states, like you said. I mean, working with a cattle ranch in Texas, you've got clients all over, but now you've got team members all over as well with different cultures, domestically and internationally. And I know that you personally have experience working with team members nationwide, but also internationally. You had clients internationally as well. I think you mentioned on our last call, I think Japan was one of the places where you gave an example of one of the clients there. But can you go into that a little bit? Because more and more teams are now working with both nationwide teams and also international teams now. So when we're talking about that cultural side of it, how should leaders think about it and sort of build their culture internally?
Great question. Well, we need to think outside the box, right? I mean, the world has changed. We've got to understand other cultures, first of all, I think. And a big part of a leader is not so much talking, but also listening. And you mentioned introverts and extroverts. There are some fantastic, amazing leaders who are introverts.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the person out there in front of the camera all the time, hawking your company or whatever, right? As an extrovert, as a CEO of a large company, you don't need to be that person, but you need to be able to communicate with your teams and your people in a meaningful way and listen. Listening is so important. So when you're working with international teams in particular, you want to understand our culture. Now, sometimes it's difficult to do. And what you need to really do is, if you don't have that expertise or experience with those types, those countries and people from those countries, maybe you have somebody in your team who's from that country, which is a big help. We had a couple of guys we had some folks from the Philippines, there's some folks from South Africa on our teams, from the UK as well, even different cultures. And so understanding their culture, understanding what's important to them. So listening, finding the right partner, whether it's an outsourced partner or whatever, or it's another team that helps you do their work. You really want to find a good fit from a cultural standpoint, and what they believe in. So you want to align with what they believe in with what you believe in.
Yeah.
So you have to really listen, do your due diligence, really invest that time with them. Again, I would have someone on the team be kind of a point person, right? To work with that country. If it's outsourced tax services, let's say, you want to have a point person to actually spend time with them, get to know them, start small with some project, I think, and then kind of build up. You know this better than I do in terms of working with the international outsourcing. Build that relationship with them. It's all about relationships. So you're building a relationship now across the world. We are a global society. Let's face it. We are global businesses, and there's resources all around the world we could be using if we do it with the right focus and right intentionality. Again, being aligned with your values and your culture. Having somebody on your team that's focused on coordinating that, being a point person, also having someone on their end, same person that's a point person, and also doing due diligence. And honestly, one of my clients recently went overseas to visit with the outsourced firm just to get to know them better and to understand their makeup and meet their people and that sort of thing. I think building relationships is important, whether it's inside the U.S. or outside the U.S., outside the country. Building relationships, and it's made our jobs as leaders so much harder now, right? Because everybody's so far spread out. Even your staff people, the U.S. could be remote, partially remote, hybrid, or full-time remote. Engagement's still important. So it's picking up the phone, doing a Zoom call or a Teams call, face to face, spending some time with them, and spending some time just over like a cup of coffee. Not just all about work stuff, right? We'll have conversations around non-work stuff. Want to get to know them, get to know their personality a little bit more, get to know their character, because it helps you to strengthen that relationship and that bond, and just talk to them as a human being. I think sometimes we get so far caught up in our very task-oriented lives, right? We kind of forget about, hey, there's a human being on the other side. Just relate to them on a human level. I think that will make a big, big difference.
Yeah, and especially when it's so virtual now. I mean, like, again, so many firms are embracing the virtual culture from that perspective. But I mean, I can attest to it from my side as well. I mean, most meetings are meetings, right? I mean, you schedule your meetings and you have your meetings. You don't necessarily go in your calendar and schedule, hey, I'm going to sit with you for no reason. It's just to really get to know each other, right? And again, luckily, my company and the way that we work, essentially, like, it's with different professionals that, again, we can sit and we can cover a few bits and then we have a conversation. It's all built on the relationship side of it. So that's the good aspect. But especially in firms, when we're working with our team members, it's not necessarily like that. It's your manager is there coordinating with, I need this project, I need this done. This is what feedback we've got, whatever the case is. And we always tend to go towards the work first when actually it's that relationship piece actually helps with everything, right? It helps align properly within the firm. We get to understand each other, what nips each other off, which things, whether you really need to hear the positive feedback consistently, whether you're somebody that, like, don't call me out in a meeting, whether I've done a good thing, because I really don't want that. Like, right? Yeah, I may just want that one-to-one, like, hey, you're doing a great job, but, like, I don't want to be called out in front of everybody, right? Certain people are different, right? So getting to know them is very important, I think, is the big thing.
It is. And I think, too, one of my clients was sharing me 2 weeks ago that they have multiple offices. And so they have these team meetings. Most people sit on their hands. They don't really participate in the conversation. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know what to do. I mean, I want them to be more engaged. And so, well, maybe set the tone before the meeting. Let them know you're going to call on some people, right? Give them some questions or something they can focus on. It's very specific, so they can participate in that. You're right. A lot of people, they're somewhat shy. They don't want to be called out or whatever. They may sit on their hands. I used to hold back when they were all in the office, right, many years ago. So I'd have a quarterly meeting with just the staff, no other partners or managers or anybody, just the staff, kind of check in with them, see what was going on and that kind of thing. And people could submit questions before the meeting and I would address those. There weren't a lot of conversations in the meeting, right? There'd be one or two people that would kind of say something and participate in it. And I would just ask people, what are your thoughts? And I try to call on some people I thought were more comfortable in responding, that sort of thing. Yeah, people are going to kind of sit on their hands. So the one-to-ones are really, really important.
Yeah.
Especially, back during the pandemic, I mean, there was so much fear and all this stuff in our society, right? So people needed to have that one-on-one conversation. People felt isolated. You don't want anybody to feel isolated, even today. So whether you're the leader and you're reaching out to people, or you're having your direct reports and your principals and your senior manager, make sure there's a system in place, a process where people are reaching out to people one-to-one, not just quarterly. It's almost some people, I think, try to do it. Some people have told me that they try to do this once a month and kind of rotate it. You can't talk to everybody all the time. Making that effort, building those relationships is really, really important.
So as we come to, and again, really great having you on, John. I think, do you have one small major takeaway, right? Small being short, but major takeaway that you want everybody to really think about, right? Coming off this and listening to what we've gone over, because we covered a lot in different areas as well. And then also just share your details, how people can reach out to you if they need some support in this area.
Sure. First of all, simplify. Try to simplify things. Don't be in a hurry. The Navy SEALs have a great motto. Smooth is fast. Okay, wait, let me get this right. I use this a lot and I'm drawing blank. Slow is smooth is fast. Now, Navy SEALs are in life or death situations, but slowing things down enables you and your firm to think more, be more intentional, have better decision making, take better action. And in the long run, it's faster. So slowing things down. Take time as a leader to give yourself some white space on your calendar so you can think about the business, not just be in the business and deadlines and billable hours for your clients, but thinking just broadly about the business. Communicate with your people frequently. Focus on building relationships, strong relationships with your direct reports and as many people in your firm as you can. It's really, really important. Be intentional about your vision for the firm and the culture of your firm. Make sure those are aligned and collaborate. Don't do it all on your own. Perfect. Those tips I think are really important.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody. So please feel free to reach out to John. I'll post his details as well. But the CEO Sensei is happy to help. So I'm sure he can help teach you in the martial arts as well. So
I do incorporate that sometimes with my clients. I had one client that would say, I need a Tai Chi session. It's okay. And we actually live close to each other, so we could do it face to face. We can do it virtually too. Just reaching out to me, you can find me on my website, johnjfenton.com, and then LinkedIn, John J. Fenton, the CEO coach. And also just email me, John at johnjfenton.com. I have some great resources for your listeners, engagement tool. I call it the Engagement Accelerator, johnjfenton.com /engage. You can get a free download of that. It's kind of a cheat sheet on how to engage better with your teams.
Perfect. Thanks, John. And thanks everyone for joining. And feel free to reach out to John, myself, if you have any questions. If you want to be connected, happy to help. Okay.
Thanks,
have
Lawrence.
A good one. Thank you for tuning in to Business Beyond Borders. I'm Lawrence Whittam, and it's been a pleasure bringing you impactful insights tailored for the modern CPA firm. Remember, the world of accounting is vast and ever evolving, and we're here to navigate it together. For more resources and episodes, don't forget to subscribe and reach out to our experts. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of your business and explore the limitless possibilities beyond borders.